Hey there. This is my last ever battle in the beta. This was never going to be a video. I had a really good game, or a series of games, 1v1s with a buddy, where we were both learning like a whole lot about the game and our various different factions. But I had my camera microphone switched on, so I sounded like the Wizard of Oz talking for a ham radio. So that was unusable. So we've got another video with the cam icon on the bottom left. Enjoy! So I knew what I was doing a bit more in the last game compared to the first game. This video, in fact, was supposed to have narration provided at the time, but I had my microphone unplugged because I'm professional. So I wouldn't say I've got like my build order refined, but I feel more confident knowing what buildings do what and what I can expect from different units. I've never attacked this way on the map. I've always been on the other side of the map, so it was nice seeing the world from the other side. From the last game to this game, my strategy with regards to my actual troops hasn't refined in any way, shape or form. Still just attack move spams. But I think that might be about the level the game operates on now. Unit abilities aren't convenient to select when you've got a big mob of people. It's difficult to pick individual units. In the heat of battle, you have to kind of rely on the bar at the bottom, which actually is completely inconvenient when you're dealing with a mob of units and some of them are in the attack group and some of them aren't. I'm sure in given time it will be possible to effectively micro the game, but I don't think it's an easy game to micromanage. I don't mind that because in Dawn of War 1 I used to affect attack moves rather than like full-blown micro. I mean, I liked teching up in Dawn of War 1, so I tend to micromanage with like a couple of units of guardsmen and grenades because I'm an awful person, until, you know, I could get some hellhounds and some sentinels. Or maybe if I was doing really good micromanaging with the 2 or 3 squads of guardsmen, I'd just tech all the way up to a Baneblade. I mean, I'm not saying I was super at Dawn of War 1, but if I didn't have a Baneblade by 11 minutes, I'd be a bit disappointed with myself. So, this was one of the first times I was brave enough to take the sort of middle point. In every other game before this one, I sort of hold back, feeling that if I do confront anyone in the middle, I will do terribly. I'm still in a semi-permanent state of panic whilst playing the game, which is a good thing. That sort of suggests that it matters to me. But I'm more on the fence than I was. I don't know if it's just because I've read forums and I'm worried about not being in sync with the rest of humanity, and everyone seems to be up in arms about the game. I think it's a mix of Dawn of War 1 and Dawn of War 2. It's not like a refinement of either, so I can understand how that's not going to please anyone. I'd ideally have had Dawn of War 1 and Dawn of War 2 be different franchises and have had like a refined version of Dawn of War 1 simultaneous to Dawn of War 2, or have Dawn of War 2 be like a game mode that existed in a real Dawn of War 2 that maintained more elements from Dawn of War 1. But maybe there isn't a market for that. In the last video I wasn't sure what unit selecting scrap did, And I'm still not sure, but based on looking at the units, I think that it's just a general improvement in their war gear. Like armor and weapons seem to visibly improve, so I'm guessing it's just like a perk to all their stats. Of course, assumptions are baseless, so, you know, ignore me at your leisure. So I do think war banners are a bit... I do think orcs are overpowered. I've gone from feeling it to believing it and accepting it in my core. Being able to build decent artillery, having reasonable shooting, having quite effective melee, and having defensible structures really does give you a lot of opportunities for strong attack and strong defense. Like the Elder seem to be good at strong attack, but they've not, or at least as far as I've seen, not got any real way of maintaining control once you've got it, which makes your situation tenuous. I've hardly played as Space Marines at all because I find Space Marines in every conceivable way to be the most generic and boring of factions in the tabletop, you know, and in any game. Like I'm reading some books about Space Marines at the moment because that's what you do, and I'm finding the books interesting, the Dan Abnett books anyway. That doesn't change the fact that if Space Marines were an ice cream flavour, they would be vanilla. You know, nothing wrong with them, but nothing stand out. Perhaps the flavour or standard by which others are compared to. But anyway, pretty sure nobody's watching this video for my theories on how Space Marines are like vanilla ice cream. So with the war banners and a couple of units down, I feel relatively confident I'm going to keep this territory. Bit concerned about my allies in the south. Eldering around. That doesn't look like it's going to go very well. So I'd never intended to make this many gameplay type things without a bit more involvement, but I'm having one computer problem after another at the moment. I installed an SSD and discovered, or managed to at the time, break my bulk drive's SATA connector, and at the moment it's just held together by wishes and hope. So I'm scared to move my computer at all, and I just got told that Western Digital won't offer me any support because of, I can't remember the term they used, but it was effectively, nope, we're blaming this one on you, which may be fair enough. I expected from Western Digital like a whole bunch more support, but I'm dealing with really limited disk space at the moment and trying to work around that, so don't really have the time to do a whole shit ton of editing. So welcome to gameplay videos. Just bulking up. Deciding maybe to have a tiny little investigatory poke. So I'm definitely better at, you know, or I think I'm better at commanding my troops now. I've advanced to like 2 attack moves instead of just the 1. It's about here I start wondering where the enemy troops are. And then you see a point that someone hasn't even put a listening post on, and you start wondering whether or not the matchmaking system is entirely fair. Like, I'm not good, or even perhaps acceptable at this stage, but I'd have had a listening post there. So, grabbing an extra point that enables you to get the relic units, that made me feel good that I'd eventually pick the Morkanaut, but I think I managed to avoid selecting it throughout this battle. It's the only unit I really sort of wanted to show off in a video at some point. Well, at least from the Orc faction. The Imperial Knights look awesome, though I think they might be a bit on the large side. Been having thoughts about the epic units in terms of the scale. I think the Imperial Knight might be closer to a Scout Titan, or even like... I'm not entirely sure it's an appropriate size. I think Knights are supposed to be a little bit smaller. But they look really impressive, so, you know, if someone originally made them and made the epic units and saw that they were about the same size as like the big mechs and the Wraith Lords, perhaps they thought that the unit needed a bit more scale, gravitas. Not entirely sure how much I dig the cover mechanic in that you've just got spooky patches. I feel like they could, or they would really benefit from having just put bushes there, or like ruins. Something that visually makes sense. Unless the devs' eyes work a lot differently to mine, and, you know, when they see sort of a low wall or a bush, it's just mysterious black shadow. In terms of how the cover is visually represented, that's the best theory I've got that makes, you know, I want to say some sense, but of course it doesn't make any sense. So I'm wanting to get some builders round to my little foothold in their base, but they keep on getting killed, so I undertake a great spam, just in the hope of sneaking through some Gretchens. Again, like, once you've got some WoW banners down, you feel fairly secure, possibly disproportionately secure compared to the other races. My tummy just rumbled. I don't know if the mic caught it. I suspect it probably did, but that's context. I mean, if the mic didn't catch it, I'm going to regret saying all of this, but, you know, we'll go with it for now. If anyone watching sees any obvious commands that I've failed to use that would make playing more efficient, feel free to comment, so that others may learn from my failings. I really didn't see whether or not there were any sort of efficient right clicks to improve on reinforcement, or any of the sort of buttons that existed in Dawn of War 1 that I was familiar with. But if anything like auto reinforce does exist, watching me individually click each one probably looks quite painful. So this is me excitingly collecting scrap with my army, giving them mild buffs before going into the attack. Or I say the attack operation sneaks some Gretchens into the opponent's base. I mean, this whole time I'm thinking, they've got to attack me. They've got to attack me, right? But it just doesn't seem to happen. I mean, they've got the button point, so like there's a There's a degree of parity, no one seems to be pushing. Elders moving up in the bottom there. We've got the center point. It just seems inconceivable to me that they would let me have that point for so long. Almost sent all the Gretchen in first, which would have resulted in them dying, and this whole operation being a failure. Almost is fine. Not meeting any opposition? Why are they attacking whatever they're attacking? Good, they stopped. I'm going to assume that was some sort of mild bug. Could be annoying early game in combat if your unit decides to randomly start chewing the scenery. So, the great cultural push is underway. Wow, banners are being allowed to be positioned basically in the enemy base. I don't know if they're pretty laid back about it and see it as some sort of cultural exchange. No, this was ballsy of me, as like quite a cautious player, just attacking the power core this early on. I'm proud of me. So even this doesn't seem to be met with the sort of resistance that you'd expect. Like my investigatory push should have just been completely obliterated. So this really might not have been a fair game. I'm assuming the other three are much more inexperienced, or at least, you know, maybe only just got the beta, though it's pretty late in the day to join. But this is definitely the beginning of the end. Though you could kind of say that about the entire game, if they weren't even building listening posts on their key points. I mean, it's not like one of the other allies couldn't have put a point there on their behalf. So I've got to assume that experience is a key factor in how comes any of this is possible. All in all though, just like going back to the fact that this is Dawn of War 3, this is the last game of the beta. We've got a little while until the game comes out, pre-orders exist. There's a lot of negative comment on the forums. I think a lot of it is probably quite valid in terms of the confusion of fighting with the larger battles, the inability to select unit abilities whilst in a group, the lack of an ability to change the camera angle I'm really bothered by, unless there is an option for that I haven't seen. The zoom could be a little bit more large scale. I'm comfortable playing at this height, but I would like to be able to zoom out a bit more to appreciate the large scale units and the large scale combat. I'm not a fan of just the power core mode, assuming that's all we're going to get. I really, really hope that there is a mode that comes down to destroying each other's structures. That just feels a lot more appropriate. The maps that are available, and it's difficult to comment on the game based on there only being one map for each size multiplayer game. The maps that are available, kind of, when people are saying, oh, it's just a MOBA, the maps do control how the game is played. I mean, that's always going to be the case, but with the forced choke points created by the shielded areas and the weird spooky cover, like how you approach the map is kind of planned in advance. I hope that there are some that are a bit more freeform, or where, you know, everything I said in the last video about asymmetrical maps and balance and enabling more teamwork by, you know, actually having maps that you approach differently each game rather than being funneled into step 1, step 2, step 3. You know, you get through the more open areas, then you have to take out the turrets, then you take out the power core. Everything is, you're kind of always going to have to do that. You might be, you know, there's a turret guarding each entrance to the base on this map, I believe, and that's restrictive. Actually, I'm incorrect. At the front of the base you can approach the power core, so that will funnel, you know, a direct attack on the power core would give everyone an equal chance to fight back. It's all just very, very equal, which I fear could lead to fairly repetitive experiences that might affect the longevity. But again, you know, I'm reading a lot of speculation into the free maps that exist, and probably that isn't appropriate. But did I personally have fun with the games that I played? Yeah, I think I did. I'm not going to cancel my pre-order. I do have reservations and doubts. I'm not like someone that even approves of pre-orders, so, you know, don't tell anyone I got a pre-order. But I'm not going to cancel it based on the beta, as a lot of people seem to be doing. I feel it has enough promise. And this is like the long-awaited counterattack that really should just be full force and obliterate everything I have. Because, I mean, you don't want orcs in your base. I don't have any issue with anyone that feels that they do need to cancel their pre-order. But I if you didn't play the beta, I'd form your own opinion, maybe in the first couple of hours, and get a refund. If you like Dawn of War 1, I think, but maybe not Dawn of War 2, I think there's enough here to sort of bridge the gap and make the gameplay appealing for you. If you really liked Dawn of War 2 and you didn't so much like Dawn of War 1, I can really understand why you wouldn't like the game, because all of the focus that I personally didn't like in Dawn of War 2 is gone. I mean, there aren't very many buildings, but the buildings existing and you being able to place them anywhere, that mixes things up a bit and takes it away from like the more sort of strict tactical feel of Dawn of War 2. I preferred the more strategic scale of Dawn of War 1, so this ticks those boxes for me. I don't mind if it ends up feeling a little bit more casual, though I do think that could be a shame. Still, you know, my perspective remains. I kind of feel that Dawn of War 1 and Dawn of War 2 should have been different sides of the same coin. One a more tactical element game mode, one a more strategic game mode. I feel a world where both of those desires can be met simultaneously, instead of us both having to make compromises, would probably be a better world. But that's just because I'm idealistic. So, I see my allies getting attacked, and because I'm the best teammate ever, I amble over with a couple of units. don't really do anything with them. I could have brought more units, and hopefully I will. The Orc artillery is brutal and really long ranged. Be a really good point for the fella in the south to try and take the point in the far south. But I'm not entirely sure anyone's going to get that creative. It is at the point for me where I'm just spamming anything. We've got the clear resource advantage, I would assume. Most of our armies are going to be more intact. They could really outplay us and make me regret just sending whatever random units I've built in. But at this stage, I feel in a strategy game, just overwhelming your opponent in TAT is a perfectly valid tactic. Words. Well done, ally in the south. So, you know, as I say, this mode is all about the power core, and I think that could lead to some fairly rushy games. I don't know. I don't even feel that that's necessarily, you know, inherently a bad thing. I think that can be a fun dynamic. Obviously, anyone that made a living doing APC engineer spams, there's a special place in hell reserved for you. But you know, the idea of there being sort of like an active early game doesn't displease me. I just don't know how gratifying it would feel like losing sort of 4 or 5 games in a row to your power core being beaten and you just not being able to push someone back because of some optimal set of units that they've coordinated between them. I mean, but again, it's all speculation until there is a sort of meta and people have tried enough things and probably they've got another faction or 2 out. I mean, 3 isn't enough. For a Dawn of War game, it feels weird only having 3 factions to start off with, and it feels more than weird knowing that we're probably going to have to pay quite a lot for each faction afterwards. Hopefully they come out in, you know, sets of 3 or something, and we'll get some scale, some selection in the races that we can play soon enough. I don't want to play as Orcs, Eldar or Space Marines, I want to play as Imperial Guard. So until Imperial Guard come out, I'm going to be living a lie. I think I'm going to have to settle for Orcs, because they're the only race that I felt remotely comfortable playing with in the beta. Or at least I felt as though either I didn't learn Eldar enough, or I was at a constant... Just there was that slight element of always seeming to be fighting uphill, but the Orcs enabled me to have a bit more push and not just be reacting. And if you're just reacting in a strategy game, the other person's dictating the flow of events, and you're going to have a bad time. Or, you know, you might not have a bad time, but you're going to probably lose. Depends how you feel about winning and losing. And once more, I digress. The only thing that really matters is how I feel about Dawn of War 3 at the moment. We're in the late game, and I mean, most of the games that I've played sort of unfortunately tend to go the way you expect them to go. I don't think I've participated in any games that all of a sudden turn around in any significant way. I've definitely read forum posts where people are saying that that can and does occur, but I can only report what I've seen. It would be better to have more of a back and forth. I would sooner have experienced more of a back and forth. It would make me feel that the game was more sort of skill based rather than just attack move. But as I say, you know, I want to lose when I'm doing a sort of lowbrow strategy. Like, I want someone to be able to micromanage and beat just a mob of units, because that's what encourages me to refine what I'm doing. If everybody can just attack move, and like, I like games where you can just attack move. It's, you know, some of the much larger scale strategy games where you just build like huge units of huge armies. Start again. Where you just build like huge formations of units and attack move them at each other, and as long as you've not been really absent-minded whilst you were constructing your units, and you just built like loads of anti-air, as long as you mix things up well enough, you're almost guaranteed to win just by weight of numbers alone. I don't want that to be Dawn of War 3. So I'm hoping that as the game comes out, people refine techniques and work around the issues with selecting unit abilities. I mean, it's not the end of the world. If you're attacking with everything, you can just select the icons at the bottom, go along the row, and you've used people's abilities, if they have them. Otherwise, you really need to remember which units have abilities that aren't just passive. And to be fair, you know, a lot of the units' abilities are passive, so we'll just need to play the game more before people make up their minds. And there's an awful lot of people making up their minds. I felt more certain about how I felt about the game when I first played it, and I was just sort of, yeah, I really like this. To now where I've read people's criticisms, I can understand where people are coming from in a lot of the instances. Totally ineffective rocks there on... Oh, and then am I going to charge through my own rocks? No. Good. Good. Well done. I thought I was about to have to insult myself fairly brutally in my own video, and that would change the tone considerably. Okay, so I know I've rambled an awful lot, but what are you going to do? We're in the late game, they're holding us at bay. My allies don't seem, you know, totally committed to finishing this. I've been repairing his big Gargant Morkanaut mech, whichever word, for quite some time, and expecting that it would, you know, contribute to one of the attacks. I'm sure it does at some point, but there were opportunities before now. The late game does have an air of inevitability, as I say. I'm hoping beyond hope that when the full game launches, there are some awesome turnarounds that can occur. Again, that's a reiteration. I've already said that. But I can't stress enough just how important it is to me. Dawn of War 1 was a really important game for me. I played like 3,000 games on one of my accounts. Dawn of War 2 I've played a lot of Last Stand because I'm a big fan of the Warhammer 40,000 universe and lore and such. I've played tabletop on and off for an awfully long time. I want the game to work, so you know, I'm not beyond accepting that maybe I'm seeing the best, and that actually I should be wailing and gnashing my teeth along with quite a few other people. Or if perhaps, you know, as the game develops and people adjust to playing it, that it could be a competitive, fun game, and that some of the obvious concerns maybe aren't going to be fleshed out, or will be able to be removed in patches, or as more maps and content is released. I mean, the thing with a strategy game is it's really easy to remove some buildings or units, or add some buildings and units to the different factions, or even just changing stats to adjust balance. I just hope that none of the big problems that people are finding or feeling exist end up being game-breaking in the long run. So fingers crossed for cosmetic and superficial issues, rather than massive sort of engine and game mechanic issues. I think the game mode can be changed, and that would be fine. I think the maps can be changed, and that would be fine. I'm not sure how they can make the game less cluttered and maintain the scale, but they could certainly give you a tab that contained all of the abilities and consumables that you could affect all together when you had a group of units selected. Even if you ended up selecting multiple units' abilities at once, it would still enable the mobs to be played. But again, that could be fixed in a patch. There are probably other issues that people have had that can't be fixed in a patch, but I can't remember them offhand. So, this definitely looks like a final push. A long overdue final push. I have no doubt I was wishing at the time that the big mech would come along, and I'm wishing now. He seems, you know, he's got a very laid back attitude. I can respect that. My dog's having a nightmare in the background. I apologise for that. Okay, he's stopped having a nightmare. I'll give him a treat when he wakes up. It'll be fine. So, endgame. Mass destruction. Why aren't I just attacking the power core? The buildings, everything, it's just a distraction. Just kill the power core. Which is, you know, this mode's point and failing. As you can see, performance issues a bit. I've got a Fury X and an i7, though I was recording at the same time, and obviously it's beta, so you know, perhaps it will be smoother, perhaps you are just going to have to expect this degree of slowdown in the late game, there's a lot of units, the units look very nice, there's a lot of flashy lights and effects. I mean, even just the stuff going on in the background where like you can really see the slowdown, or at least you can whilst I'm looking at it back on the recordings. There's a lot going on, so I wouldn't be shocked to see a lot of slowdown. But if you're on a humble computer, it could be a problem. I'd recommend anyone with a low-end or mid-range PC that wants to play the game to launch up a skirmish and let it get really, you know, busy. Play against some easy AI and just get all of the units out and see how performance is before deciding whether or not to keep the game. Everything's going ridiculous slowdown now. I assume that most of this slowdown will be there in the final render, and it's not just the editing program struggling itself. But yeah, welcome to the late game. I've always liked Warhammer turn-based games, so you know, I'm fine with this. from here on in, I'm not afraid to tell you we win. Spoilers. I'm just marveling at how bad the footage is. I apologize to everyone. I mean, I think this was the case in the last video, so I'm pretty certain this is about the best my computer can manage. And I wasn't going to buy a new graphics card for the pleasure of being able to record the last few minutes of a Dawn of War 3 match seamlessly, if that would even be possible at this moment in time. We shall see. So the end really must be nigh. How are we not already... Why are we retreating? I thought that power core was nearly dead. I can see so's half of my army, but we're orcs. We shouldn't be fazed by such trivialities. I'm just hoping that the rendering looks slightly better than what I'm looking at right now, because it is just... It looks like it's sort of 5 frames per second, constantly. And of course, if it is rendered well, and this is just the program that I'm using, well, everything I'm saying now is going to seem awfully redundant. But I feel as though that could be the title or theme of the video, so I'm just going to go with it. I hope in amongst the just randomly talking about whatever came into my brain, I've said some useful stuff about the game, and attempted to respond to some of the concerns. I still feel that, 90% of the people saying that it's the worst game ever and Dawn of War 3 is going to kill the franchise, I still reckon we're all going to buy the game, because we're all massive Warhammer 40,000 nerds. So, I mean, we may as well wait until it comes out a little bit more to really decide if it's the worst thing since E.T. The Atari game, of course. Not the film. I'm not choosing now as the moment to alienate myself from all of humanity by saying E.T. wasn't a good film. But is Dawn of War 3 a good game? I don't know. Might be. Gonna have to wait and see. If it's just power core mode, then nope. If it's got a good solid single player, and it's just power core mode, still probably nope. You do need compelling multiplayer. If they can get that together, then Dawn of War 3 lives on. I mean, if the single player is just really proficient, then it's still not an end game, maybe. I think Dawn of War, of all of the strategy games I've ever played, could potentially survive on the basis of its single player campaign more so than many others. I'll be pretty distraught if there's not a last stand, but yeah, thanks for watching.